Hi guys, my name is Cortland Jacoby and I am here with Punch Drunk Critics. Today I get to talk to someone very, very cool. You know them for their roles on Netflix's Between and Mary Kills People. You can see them next in Sarah Polley's Brilliant Women Talking, about a group of women debating whether or not to leave their ultra-religious community after it is revealed that the men of the group have been assaulting them for years. August Winter plays the trans character Melvin, who tends to the community's children. August, it's great to have you.
Thanks for having me.
So how did you get involved in the project, and had you read Marian Tu's book ahead of time?
So no, I hadn't read the book before. As soon as I heard about the project, I did though, and everybody should read it. It is a beautiful book. This writer is brilliant. Anyways, but I first got involved with this project because in a bit of a personal background, it was right after I more publicly came out as non-binary. And this was the first role that came in to audition for after that. And so it was a really meaningful, thing to experience as a first time being who I am now in the world. And so that's how it first came to me. And then there were several rounds of auditions and meeting Sarah and as it unfolds. But yeah, it aligned at a really cool time in my life too.
You just mentioned director Sarah Polley. One thing I love about the film is how she would just drop little bits of information in just the right moments that then feel devastating later on. Did that come through when reading her script, and what were your initial thoughts upon reading?
Yeah, Sarah Polley is a brilliant brilliant director, writer, person. So those moments that you're talking about, they were definitely in the script. It was one of the most specific scripts I've ever read. She was very clear about what she was wanting and very intentional. So they came off the page immediately too. I mean, I'm thinking back to the first time I read it, and I had chills at probably some of those parts you're referencing right now. When I first read the script, I couldn't put it down. It read similar to the book in that sense of I just need to take in this story. And what struck me about the script particularly was how there was never any reference or pointing towards the right or wrong opinion. It was really this unfolding of on one moment I agreed with one character, and then the next I could see that person's point of view, and it did such a beautiful job of incorporating all these different perspectives. Yeah, it was brilliant script.
When we meet these people, we're kind of thrown into their situation, and yet their bond and their history is so deeply felt between them. What was that natural, or did you and your castmates bond ahead of time to build that up a bit? I also, your character separates himself from the rest of the adults. Did that separation manifest on set, or was that just on screen?
Yeah. So to answer your first question, we had a couple weeks of rehearsals before we started shooting, which always helps because you just sometimes meet a person the first day you're shooting and you go. So that really helped. It was also mid height of COVID. And so we were kind of all in a bit of a bubble together, and that bonds people quite quickly. But I think I have to put it also to these people, these women, these actors who are so giving of themselves. And so everyone clicked immediately. It was very much you find your way in this group and you're like, oh, these are my people. And I could really sense that they were all having that experience. In terms of Melvin's relationship to that, I do feel that he's a bit of an outsider, not because they reject him in any way. I think he very much still belongs in that community. But he is an outsider, and he is watching and listening more. And so I think naturally I also took a bit more of that role on set, partly because these people are so amazing to just watch and listen to. So that wasn't hard to do. Yeah.
Especially with Frances McDormand and Claire Foy, you're working with some of the best people working right now. So
absolutely.
So we don't meet Melvin until a little ways into the film, but we see quite a bit of his backstory, and how he became selectively mute. How did you develop your character beyond what's on the page?
Yeah, it's a great question because I think with what's delicate about Melvin's story is trying to establish without words or show without a lot of words um who he's always been, versus this being a product of the attacks of him choosing to be a man because of the attacks. That's not what it was. He was always this way, and this was a catalyst. And so that was a really important element for me to try to find and show. I think, though, especially the part about choosing not to speak was really fascinating to me, and I wanted to get clear about why. And I think what helped me understand this part of him was, when anyone has gone through something traumatic or very challenging, and it's a part of them, but in order to move forward, they can't carry that story with them prominently. And so to me, Melvin's decision not to speak was any relation to that older identity that was never true, that is now tied up with these attacks. In order for him to move forward, he couldn't speak about it. And so that's how I started to understand him, was this very powerful and brave choice he makes, both in his gender expression as well as how to communicate so that he can actually like live as himself. Yeah, incredibly brave.
We see Melvin very much come into himself when he's watching over the children of the community. In fact, the children are the only people that he chooses to talk to. In your mind, how did you justify that? Why do you think that is?
I think that Melvin is a caretaker by nature, and loves children, loves to be able to care and nurture, and needs somewhere to put that love. I think that when he lost his child, I think that for him to be able to keep serving his community and loving in that way, this is his way of making peace with that. And I also think it's really cool to see someone who identifies as male in that role, so effortlessly doing that. So I think it's his way of continuing to love that in a way that feels safe.
Whenever there's not a lot, but whenever there's a film about the Amish Quaker Mennonite community, kind of these like isolated religious communities, very rarely do we see trans slash non-binary characters or any really queer representation. In fact, you might be the first. Uh,
Mhm.
is that something you thought about when deciding how to play him, like the convergence between gender and religion?
Yeah, I mean, so as you mentioned, there's not a lot of reference to
No.
it out there at all, even in the real world. So I didn't think about it too much, only because in retrospect, yes, but only because Melvin doesn't have any reference to it.
Right.
Right? He has no concept probably of what, he just knows what it feels like inside. And
Mhm.
so in portraying him, I wanted to be very respectful of what that would mean, but I wasn't thinking too much about how he was thinking of queerness, because I'm not sure he would have even had that language or that concept. And so, but that being said, to make this decision in such a religious and specific environment, with the potential consequences, it adds so much more, I think, weight and impact to it, because he continues to do this, even when there is no one else to look to around him that is living this way.
I hadn't even thought about the fact that he probably didn't even have a reference for this before. And
No,
that just also goes to the nature of, like that it is on a cellular fundamental level, like who someone is, and not just, necessarily what society
exactly.
thinks it is, which is like, oh, it's just a trend or, something
Yeah.
like that.
Yeah, exactly. That's well said. Yeah.
Well, August, thank you so much for having me and for sitting with us today. It's been an absolute pleasure, and congratulations on a really, really powerful and wonderful film. I hope it does great this Oscar season.
Thank you. Nice to talk to you.
Thanks for checking out the show. If you like what we're laying down, please subscribe to our channel. and click the bell to receive notifications for all of our latest stuff.